Planning on smoking a little dope, having a little premarital sex, and getting slaughtered?
Fallen too high! Hi everybody and welcome to Rotting Flesh Movie Reviews. I'm your host Billy Pop and let's continue on in our thing. Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday, made in 1993, directed by Adam Marcus. I put the DVD in the player and I pressed yup. We start off the flick with a chick. She's going to a cabin to get naked and have a shower, and Jason doesn't even come back from the dead. He's just there and chases this chick out of the cabin. Machete now clearly his main weapon, even though he obviously used many other implements before. A girl runs into a field with a SWAT team blows Jason to smithereens. In amongst the shrapnel there's Jason's heart. It beats by itself a few times and then it dies. Out in the woods we see this shady guy that obviously no one knows is there. And he seems highly convinced that even though a SWAT team just blew Jason to bits, he believes Jason to still be alive. After that we get a coroner doing an autopsy on Jason in the lab. This guy gets a little slutty looking for some Jason-ass and devours his nasty-ass heart. He ends up getting possessed by Jason and gains all the sudsy powers of hell! The possessed coroner ends up killing a few people, including Kane Hodder.
You want nothing but a big old pussy anyway.
Who calls Jason a pussy, which is funny because he is Jason. We cut to a news program covering the events that just happened, and we find out Jason's dad's name was Elias Voorhees. Plus we meet the shady dude who was in the forest earlier when Jason was blown up. His name is Creighton Duke, and he's the Samuel L. Jackson wannabe in this flick. He does come across as a badass, though.
I'm going to say two words to you, Mr. Duke, and I want you to say the first thing that comes to your mind, okay?
Okay.
You ready?
Shoot.
Jason Voorhees.
Well, that makes me think of a little girl in a pink dress sticking a hot dog through a donut.
He explains that Jason is not so much a being, but an entity, and when we see him, it's just someone else's flesh. Kinda weird, but okay. Mr. Duke also explains that he is the only one who knows how to kill Jason. How he knows that, we can't really be sure. But he wants 500 grand to do it. The news reporter interviewing him, Robert Campbell, agrees to pay him if he provides proof. Over at Camp Blood, these weird people who run a restaurant are having 2-for-1 Jason burgers, and it's weird because they make the patties look like little Jason masks. Obviously their customers aren't aware of how bad they're getting ripped off because they're getting holes put in their fucking burgers. A waitress comes to serve the Duke and gets an earful about how he needs her to kill Jason for some reason. We find out she's the main character and her name is Diana. Her husband, who is way too old to be with her, is the sheriff, and he tries to make the Duke fuck off, essentially. But the Duke is looking to get his rocks off.
Why don't you blow me, Chief?
The sheriff don't like it, so he told him to get out. Diana discusses with a young fellow with glasses about how she needs to talk to him later in private about something important. There's a lot more going on in this movie than we are used to. The nerd with glasses picks up some teenagers and delivers them to Camp Blood. At this point, Jason is dead, so no one should have any problems, right? Anyways, it's totally not a very pointy point because they get slaughtered and they don't even matter to the story other than to add some kill scenes. Figured I'd throw those in there. Somehow in the mix, Diana's husband gets abducted by coroner Jason and gets possessed. He then tries to kill Diana, but the nerdy guy, who we'll call Steven, comes in to not save the day at all. Diana is killed. Steven impales Diana's husband Jason with a fire poker and he escapes. Our main female lead is dead. Like a duel. We find out Steven had a son with Diana's daughter Jessica. Steven gets arrested for the murder of Diana because her husband Jason fled the scene. Jessica shows up with her fiancé Robert, the news broadcaster, who offered Duke the money to kill Jason. In prison, Steven is right next to the cell Duke is held in. Duke's a cut and breaks Steven's fingers as cost to get 3 rules about Jason. Destroy his heart, but only Jessica can do it. Why? Because she's Jessica Voorhees. That's why. He needs to be reborn to keep his old sexy hockey mask look, for some reason. But he needs Jessica to do it. The last rule he just gives away.
This one's on the house.
The cardinal rule, my boy. Through a Voorhees he was born, so shall he have to be reborn. Hence Jessica, and only by their hands will he die too. Right? That's why Jason X never existed. Steven escapes prison to go tell Jessica of her destiny, and save his baby, because it's also a Voorhees. A bunch of crap happens. We get to see the Necronomicon from Evil Dead and watch a nice 80s body melt. In the 90s. Eventually Jessica figures out that Steven is a really great guy, and that's why he wants the best for her. In the end, it all comes down to Jason getting stabbed with a magic dagger. But not before his disgusting little fucked up sperm demon thing crawls up the deceased Diana Voorhees pussy. He is reborn in exactly the same disgusting deformed grossness he was at the beginning of the movie. Shouldn't he be, like, fresher or something? In the end, Jessica stabs him through the heart, and a bunch of cheesy-looking Muppet hands drag him to hell. The ending of this movie is way too infamous. So I'll just let you fans be the judge of how way too bendy the blades of Freddy's glove are. So this movie was legendary in my eyes when I saw the cover. And the first time I saw it, I loved it. Does it hold up? Let's see. The first thing I will say is that this flick is completely different than any other Jason flick. It's barely a slasher movie. The direction of this flick is very 90s. So you can tell it's like a product of its age. The lighting is good, the sets were okay. The writing in this was different for a Jason movie. Arguably it's the best because I've never watched a Jason that was so different. Surprise-wise, it kinda works. The acting was alright. It wasn't anything to remember though unless you count Mr. Hodder pulling off Jason for the 3rd time. The characters in this were hit and miss. The fun characters like Duke were fun and the no-name characters were just no-name characters. The dialogue was pretty good if not purposefully campy at times. The effects shown in this were amazing. Some of these scenes are so worthy of some of the best, even if the hockey mouse Jason isn't the one tearing apart people's butts. The music in this sucked dick though. Really no fun at all. Probably the worst I've heard thus far in the franchise. I can't recommend this to most Jason fans unless you want to see them all. Why? Because Jason's in it all of 10 minutes. I like this movie, but it's barely even a slasher flick, and falls very odd on the franchise. I give it 6 out of 10 for originality, and 3 out of 10 for being a Friday flick. Thanks for watching. One more to go! Please subscribe to me. I will give you this sock and this light bulb. I'll give you these things. You can put this into this. That Magic production.